ValveTime.net.
Welcome to a very special episode of ValveTime Database. We're going to be breaking away from our regular database format for this episode, so instead of looking at one particular element of a game, we're going to be examining the entire thing. Now, we know it's a little weird that we're deviating from the format only 3 episodes in, but trust us, it should be worth it. In this episode, we're taking a close look at Prospero, one of the first games Valve ever worked on. The history of Prospero is shrouded in mystery, and not much is actually known about the game other than it began development in 1996, which also happens to be the year Valve was founded by Gabe Newell and Mike Harrington. The game was then scrapped sometime in late 1997 or early 1998 before the release of Half-Life. While the game's history has always been relatively unknown, we have been able to acquire some early in-game screenshots which provide some never-before-seen insight into the game and how it was intended to play out. We have also been kindly provided with some interesting background information given to us exclusively by Mark Laidlaw, the lead writer for both Prospero and the Half-Life series. Let's start right at the beginning. Back in 1996, Valve had 2 simultaneous projects in development, Quiver and Prospero. Quiver's initial concept evolved into what we know as Half-Life, while Prospero was slated to become a very different kind of game. Raising the Bar describes Prospero as a moody literary game drawing on sources ranging from Myst to Jorge Luis Borges. Greg Coomer, lead designer for the project, said the game emphasized exploration, an intricate storyline, and combat via psionic powers. At the time, Valve was only a small studio and they needed a writer to drive the vast scope of the game. In July 1997, Mark Laidlaw was hired. Although we now know Mark as the lead writer for the Half-Life series, Mark confirmed to us, yes, Prospero is the game I was working on initially. In an interview with Gamma Sutra in 2003, he clarified this, saying, "I was supposed to do a couple weeks of work to consolidate the storyline of Half-Life so that it could ship that year, while the bulk of my time was devoted to a science fantasy epic called Prospero." Prospero began development as a third-person exploratory and story-driven adventure game before gradually shifting more towards a massive multiplayer title, as Quiver slowly consumed several of Prospero's original goals. Many of the features we now associate with Steam were originally conceived as part of Prospero's core game experience, as Valve envisioned the game to feature full friend lists, server browsers, and user-made and official maps digitally distributed to players across the internet. All this content was supposed to be tied together through an in-game library linking all of the different maps or worlds as they were otherwise known. This system was likely similar to Portal 2's co-op hub. To emphasize just how ahead of its time Prospero really was, Carl Deckard's resume states that content he originally created for Prospero was later repurposed for the Portal 2 puzzle creator, a tool released over 16 years later. If you've heard of Prospero or read anything from Raising the Bar, you've likely heard of a character known as the Librarian, or Aleph. While developed as the game's protagonist, Aleph underwent many substantial changes throughout the game's production. One of her main features involved using technology to enhance and amplify her psionic powers, something which likely acted as the inspiration for the design of the Combine Advisors. The use of the Librarian title was rather literal, given her control over the library map we mentioned earlier. However, her other name, Aleph, is far more interesting. Jorge Luis Borges is commonly cited as a key inspiration for Mark Laidlaw's work, and Prospero is no exception. In this case, the name derives directly from The Aleph, a short story written by Borges in 1945. The story describes a phenomena known as an aleph, which acts as a point in space containing all other points, is described in the story as being the only place on Earth where all places are seen from every angle, each standing clear without any confusion or blending. Given how Prospero's Aleph tended to a library, you can see how the name begins to make more sense. The name Aleph was later found in use within the Half-Life 2 leak in 2003. A voice line found within the leaked files shows Dr. Wallace Breen discussing the term with Eli as he asks for help attempting to use the Combine portal technology for humans. The line, BR_reconsider03, reads as follows.
That way, Alex and even yourself might be able to travel to the Aleph universe with your faculties intact.
While this might seem like a direct connection between Half-Life 2 and Prospero, this isn't exactly the case as clarified by Laidlaw himself. Aleph has a meaning that predates Prospero and Dr. Breen, that's why it came up again. We used to talk about Borges a lot. Mark also added, there's no intentional overlap of worlds, though all conceivable worlds could be pocket universes contained in the library, I suppose. Looking at it from that perspective, every Valve universe, from Left 4 Dead, Half-Life, Dota, Team Fortress 2, and even Ricochet, would theoretically exist as separate worlds within Prospero's library, as would every other world, including the real one that we live in, and all of its infinite dimensional alternatives. While talking about infinity, let's touch on some theoretical mathematics, which we admit we're not all that great with. In our email exchanges, Laidlaw added we also called her Aleph Null. The librarian character was one of a set. This prompted us to wonder, what does this mean exactly? Well, Aleph numbers are used in set theory to denote the size of infinite sets of numbers, as they are not truly infinite. An Aleph Null is given specifically to the first or smallest set. On this basis, we imagine Mark envisioned other versions of Alephs or the librarian characters running other parallel sets, each containing its own set of worlds. It would certainly have been an extremely complex and interesting world, but who exactly would have inhabited the world besides Aleph? Do we have any evidence of other characters in Prospero? Well, yes. Meet Miranda, a piece of concept art by Les Betterly. When asked about the character, Betterly stated, "I was an artist on that team and was just coming up with art to get the creativity started. Miranda was the name given to the female hero." Laidlaw admitted to us that he actually knew nothing of the character, saying it must have come from the original Prospero concept, which predated his arrival. The character's name was clearly inspired by William Shakespeare, as Shakespeare's play The Tempest features a protagonist known as Prospero. Prospero's daughter, another key character within the play, is known as, you guessed it, Miranda. Now, keen-eyed Half-Life fans out there have probably already spotted the rather identifiable tattoo on her left arm, given the Lambda's connection to the Half-Life series. While the symbol would later become the single most iconic piece of imagery in the Half-Life universe, Les Betterly admits the Lambda was my influence, not something required. Interestingly enough, the symbol never stuck with Prospero, eventually being recycled by Laidlaw for use in Half-Life. It was never a Prospero logo, it just went well with the title of the game, so we applied it to an important goal/area of Half-Life 1, and then we posited that it survived as an icon of resistance into Half-Life 2. While the Lambda's crossover from Prospero to Half-Life is small and somewhat unintentional, there are several more solid examples of content which bled from one game to the other. The original Half-Life 1 soundtrack, composed by Kelly Bailey, featured several tracks labeled with the Prospero title in their file name. These include Vague Voices, originally known as Prospero 1, Steam in the Pipes, known as Prospero 2, Traveling Through Limbo, known as Prospero 3, and you get the idea. Greg Coomer, lead designer for Prospero, also played an important role in the development of the Zen levels for Half-Life, so it isn't exactly surprising that several of these Prospero tracks eventually found a Xenian home amongst the headcrabs. There are more noticeable connections between Zen and Prospero, however, including some similarities between the environments of both worlds. Here are several never-before-seen development screenshots of Prospero, showing the game's world and protagonist Aleph. The images show several rough, unfinished environments created by Randy Lundeen as a means of establishing the game's sense of scale. In regards to these screenshots, Laidlaw stated, "As you can see, it was a third-person game, so getting scale right was critical." While rather basic environments, clear similarities can be drawn between Prospero and Zen from Half-Life. In regards to the blue images, Laidlaw added, "In general, the blue-toned images are from the library, the core hub of the game, where our main character, the librarian, aka Aleph, was in charge of the various worlds stored there." This shot in particular appears extremely similar to numerous jumping puzzles seen in Half-Life in locations such as Black Mesa and Zen. The top of the library, with numerous tall spires and domes, also appears not too dissimilar to the Combine Citadel seen throughout the portal during the climactic ending of Half-Life 2. Several other screenshots, which feature warmer orange tones, show industrial levels created by level designer Duncan. Laidlaw commented by saying, "The orange tone shots are from one of the worlds you would enter. There's a boiler furnace area that generated heat to turn the giant gears shown in the other shot. Generally, it would appear the worlds Aleph was to enter were designed to feel vast and open as the player moved through them, most likely to emphasize the scale planned for Prospero, especially in terms of the countless worlds you could visit. While definitely present, the user interface appears extremely simplistic in these screenshots, perhaps denoting health levels or possibly something regarding the powers of Aleph's psionic abilities." So after 17 years of silence and mystery, that was our first real look at Prospero and where Valve's first project was headed prior to being scrapped. While it would definitely have been interesting to see the project emerge at some point, it seems the game's best ideas have already been reborn in many of the other games and technologies Valve have brought us over the past 2 decades or so. In 2011, Steamcast posed a question to Gabe Newell regarding whether they would return to Prospero at any point, to which he replied, "Well, a lot of ideas for Prospero have sort of influenced our other games subsequently, so whether or not we actually go back and do that specific game, I don't know. It actually has a lot of appeal to us, we're all sort of fond of it. Nothing ever really dies here, it's just a question of how long until we get around to doing it." Is it really that likely that Valve will revisit Prospero? Well, no, but it's always nice to dream of the what-ifs. With so many of Prospero's unique selling points and core ideas already recycled into existing games and software, it's unlikely there would be enough substance left to sustain a full game, which people would get excited about. But who knows? While it was scrapped many years ago, maybe Valve owes some of its success to ideas born during the development of Prospero. Now that we're done reminiscing about games we've never played, that brings us to the end of this episode of ValveTime Database. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to follow us on Facebook and Twitter to catch new episodes of all our great shows as soon as they're released. If you like our content, be sure to check out previous episodes of Database and to share our videos with your friends. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.